She looked me dead in the eye and said, "People like you can afford it." The bill was $600 for food I never ordered, wine I never drank, and dessert I never touched. She smirked. I smiled back. Because what she didn't know, I'm a forensic accountant, and her restaurant's books were messier than that overpriced cheesecake. She tried to hustle me for $600. I made her whole business pay 10 times that, legally. My name's Jordan. I'm 34, live in Seattle, and wear suits not because I'm rich, but because I have clients who are. I'm a forensic accountant. My job is to dig into numbers, untangle fraud, and help businesses fix or expose financial messes. I don't look like someone you can push around, but sometimes that's exactly what makes people try. A few months ago, I walked into a swanky new bistro downtown. Clean design, overpriced appetizers, and staff that looked like they were auditioning for a reality show. I was meeting a potential client, but they no-showed. So I ordered a coffee, paid, and was about to leave, when the waitress slapped me with a $600 bill. What happened next? Well, let's just say, stick around till the end. You'll see why I never walk away from a fight with a receipt. And if this hits a nerve, feel free to share it. Because some scams deserve to be aired out. It was supposed to be a quick coffee, nothing more. Tuesday afternoon, midweek lull, and I had a half hour to kill between client meetings. The place looked trendy, steel and leather everywhere, dim lights, the kind of music that sounds like a rich kid's playlist. You know the vibe. Upscale without being classy. I stepped in, got the usual look from the hostess. Eyes flicking from my watch to my shoes, subtle nod of approval. I'm used to that. I don't dress flashy, but I'm clean, tailored, and confident. People read it as money. Sometimes, they're not wrong. Just a table for one, I said. Client's running late. She sat me in the corner near the bar. I ordered a black coffee and opened my laptop, half-heartedly checking emails. Across the room, the waitress, fake blonde, 6-inch lashes, and a smirk that said, "Influencer adjacent," spotted me. She walked over like she was bored before she even started. "You waiting for someone?" she asked, glancing at my untouched water. Probably bailed. "Just coffee today." She looked at me like I'd told her I only tip in Monopoly money. "Sure, just coffee," she repeated, tapping her notepad like I was lying. 5 minutes later, she came back with the coffee. No smile, no refill offer, just to look like I was wasting her time. I shrugged it off. Not the worst service I've had, and I wasn't here for the experience. 15 minutes passed. No client. I paid for the coffee, card, for $1.75, plus a $2 tip out of habit, and started packing up. That's when she came back. Different energy this time. Smiling wide like a game show host. "Here's your check," she said, setting it down in front of me. $612.88. I blinked. "Excuse me. For the seafood tower, Dom Perignon, 2 desserts, and the coffee, of course." I looked up slowly. "I didn't order any of that. You brought me coffee." She crossed her arms. "You were seated at table 9. Those items were served to table 9. Yeah, after I sat here. Alone. You think I crushed a seafood tower by myself while you weren't looking?" She gave me a shrug that oozed condescension. "Sometimes people like to treat themselves. Or, maybe you didn't want your date to see the bill? People like you can afford it either way." My jaw tightened. Not because of the money, because of the tone. "People like me?" I repeated. "You look like money," she said flatly. "Don't play dumb." I should have walked. Should have yelled. Should have demanded the manager right then. But something in me paused. Instead, I asked one simple question. "Do your cameras work?" She didn't answer. Just turned and walked away, leaving the bill on the table. And me? I picked it up, folded it, and smiled. Because I wasn't angry. I was interested. I waited. Calmly. Hands folded over that ridiculous bill like I was reviewing a contract. Which, in a way, I was. Eventually, a man emerged from the back, adjusting his sleeves like he'd just been pulled away from something far more important than customer service. Early 40s, slick back hair, shirt too tight across the chest. One of those guys who still wears cologne that should have died with the 2000s. He strutted over. "I'm the floor manager. Problem with your check?" I handed it to him without a word. Watched his expression stay absolutely blank. Like he was expecting this. "This looks correct," he said smoothly. "Table 9, 2 entrees, seafood tower, bottle of champagne, dessert, plus coffee." "I ordered coffee," I said. "You can check with your staff. Or better, your cameras." His face didn't even twitch. Unfortunately, our security system's being serviced this week. How convenient. He shrugged. Look, if you weren't happy with the service, we can comp the desserts. I didn't order the desserts. But you were seated at that table. He snapped, finally losing the fake friendliness. And you didn't object when food was brought out. Because it wasn't brought out. Not to me. His smile returned, tighter now. We've had issues lately with dine and dashers. And you? Well, you do fit a certain profile. I laughed out loud. Oh, I do. He leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You can pay the check, and we'll call it a misunderstanding. Or I can have security escort you outside, and we involve the police. Call them, I said without blinking. That threw him. Just a beat. But enough to notice. I don't think that's necessary, he said, backpedaling. Let's not make a scene. I reached into my pocket and slowly pulled out my wallet. Flipped open a corporate card. Not my personal one. I wanted a paper trail, and I wanted it obvious. I'll pay, I said, sliding the card into the folder. But I'd like a printed itemized receipt, dated and signed. He hesitated. And if you could include the server's name on it, I added, that'd be helpful. You planning to dispute the charge? I smiled. Not at all. The transaction went through. I signed, took the receipt, and stood. But as I turned to leave, I looked him in the eye and said it clearly, slowly, for both him and the waitress who now hovered nearby, feigning distraction with a tray of water glasses. You should have just brought me the bill I actually signed. That extra $600? It's going to cost you a hell of a lot more. He snorted. What? You gonna leave a bad Yelp review? I laughed again. No. Something a little more professional. Then I walked out. Sunlight hit me like a spotlight. And I already knew. I wasn't done with this place. They thought they scammed the wrong guy. Truth is, they picked the perfect one. By the time I got home, I wasn't angry anymore. I was curious. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee in one hand, the crumpled $612 receipt in the other. I unfolded it slowly, smoothing it like a map. Not just to review the damage, but to read it. There's a difference. See, people don't realize how much a receipt tells you. Not just prices, but systems. Timing. Who rang up what? Whether the taxes align. Whether it's printed off a POS system or generated manually. And this one? Sloppy. 2 red flags jumped out immediately. First, the champagne. It was listed as Dom Gold 2004, $280. That label doesn't exist. Dom Perignon doesn't use gold in its branding, and 2004 isn't even a premium year. Second, the desserts. French Kiss X2, $28 EA. That's not a menu item. I would have remembered. I Googled it. Nothing. Not on their website, not in their socials. Which meant they made it up. The whole thing. And that's when the wheels started turning. I logged into my business account and downloaded the transaction log from the credit card terminal. My firm provides forensic support to companies all the time, and I'd helped a restaurant group once audit 5 months' worth of fraud. I knew what to look for. Then I pulled the Secretary of State database and searched their LLC. Registered under Nordale Concepts, LLC. Sounds fancy, right? Turns out they were formed just 6 months ago. Address? A WeWork space. Even better, I found 2 past Yelp reviews buried under the Not Recommended tab. Both recent. Both claiming false charges. One even used the phrase, looked rich. That's not a coincidence. I started a spreadsheet. Vendor names, food items, prices, payment methods. Then I cross-referenced it with public review mentions. Found 3 customers on Google reviews who claimed being charged for mystery bottles of wine. It was a pattern. And patterns? That's my playground. By midnight, I'd built a partial map of the scam. The restaurant was creating premium items that didn't exist, assigning them to select tables. Often solo diners or couples who didn't argue, and banking on embarrassment, confusion, or shame to push the charge through. But here's the thing. Scamming customers is one thing. Scamming the tax authority? That's a whole other beast. Because if they were billing fake items to real customers and skimming the unreported portion through cashbacks or phantom vendors, then someone was laundering money, and someone was not paying taxes. So I picked up my phone, scrolled through contacts, found one that just said, Karen DOR. We'd worked a case together once. She owed me a favor. I texted her one line. Hey, what do you need to start an anonymous audit on a shady restaurant? She replied in under 5 minutes. Evidence. Patterns. Paper trail. Got something juicy. I smiled. Oh yeah. juicy enough to choke on. The following Saturday, I went back. Not in a suit this time. Hoodie, sneakers, worn-out jeans. I shaved my beard down to stubble, popped on a baseball cap, and did my best impression of tourist who doesn't tip. I even carried a dead phone as a prop. I wasn't here to impress. I wanted to disappear into the crowd. The lunch rush was perfect. Busy enough that the staff wouldn't pay attention to faces, only orders. I got seated at a high top near the bar. New waiter this time. Kid barely out of high school, sweating through his shirt. I ordered an iced tea and fries. Then I watched, and I took notes. Table 3, couple in athleisure. Tourists. Waitress from last time. Her name tag now said Lisa, sauntered over, handed them a wine list with handwritten items at the bottom. Champagne Dom Gold, again. I leaned in. Her voice carried. You have to try this one, she said, tapping the fake vintage. It's not on the printed menu. Limited stock. 10 minutes later, she brought out 2 glasses. They looked suspiciously like Prosecco. Then came dessert. French kiss, again. They didn't ask, she suggested it on the house, then scribbled it down anyway. I snapped a blurry photo with a pocket camera hidden in my sleeve. Old school, sure, but untraceable. When my fries came, I struck up small talk with my waiter. This place always this packed? I asked. He nodded. Weekends are crazy. Ever since the wine guy started doing his private labels. I raised an eyebrow. Wine guy? Yeah, owner's brother. Imports the fancy stuff direct. We don't go through normal distributors like most places. Of course they don't. I left cash, tipped decently, and made a note. Fake vendor equals wine distributor. Probably a shell company. That night, I started digging again. Found a supplier listed on their business license. Aurora Reserve Imports. Sounds real, right? But the address? Empty lot in Tacoma. The website? 1 page, no contact form, no pricing. Just a logo and coming soon. I ran the domain through WHOS. Registered 2 months ago. Under an email linked to lisim_Nordale at protonmail.com. Lisa, the waitress. So not only was she in on it, she was likely billing the restaurant herself. As a fake vendor. Drawing payments through an alias company for imported wine that never existed. And those mystery desserts? Probably similar. Backdoor entries on the POS system, skimmed out as special items, billed to fake consultants. Every breadcrumb led back to someone. And I was making a damn feast out of this trail. By Monday, I had what Karen called actionable evidence. I'd logged 5 suspicious charges tied to premium fake items. Cross-referenced 3 of them to Lisa's shifts. And traced over $18,000 in quarterly payouts to 2 shell vendors tied to her and the floor manager. I zipped the file, encrypted it, and sent it off with 1 line. Ready when you are. Her reply? Starting the audit. Quietly. You'll hear when it hits. And I knew she meant it. The real check was about to be served. The thing about a state audit is, it never starts with sirens or headlines. It starts with silence. Then requests. Quiet ones. By midweek, Karen had confirmed that the Department of Revenue was preparing a discrete compliance review. The polite term for, we're coming in, but we're not warning you yet. She didn't say much else. Legally, she couldn't. But the tone of her email was clear. Whatever this is, it's bigger than she expected. I wasn't surprised. Because by then, I'd gone deeper. Aurora Reserve Imports wasn't just a fake wine distributor. It was billing out close to $72,000 in the last quarter alone. On paper, all routed to a business checking account registered to a holding company called L&M Concepts. A little creative digging showed that L&M just so happened to match the initials of Lisa and Mark, the floor manager. Cute, right? They were laundering money right through the front door, charging inflated prices for phantom inventory, running them as deductions, and likely pulling the excess into untaxed personal income. Basic fraud. Sloppy fraud. But done just well enough to fly under the radar. Unless someone was looking. I was looking. So I printed everything. Annotated it. Created a PDF binder with side tabs, screenshots, receipts, screenshots from their website where those premium items weren't listed, and Yelp reviews that mentioned identical scams. I included photos from my return visit, even a frame grab from a video where Lisa served wine that looked suspiciously like sparkling cider. And then I submitted the entire packet through the DOR's whistleblower portal. As a former customer with first-hand experience of being fraudulently billed and retaliated against for questioning it. No aliases. Full name. Because I wanted them to know who was watching. 2 days later, my office phone rang. Unknown number. Jordan Tate, the woman asked. Speaking. This is Valerie Laughlin, Senior Compliance Officer at the Department of Revenue. I reviewed the materials you submitted. I just have one question. Shoot. Off the record. How'd you get access to their vendor data? I smiled. Let's just say I'm good at recognizing when someone's cooking more than food. She paused. Then she chuckled. Well, Mr. Tate, thank you. We'll take it from here. Click. That was it. No fireworks. No courtroom showdown. Just a quiet signal that the engine was now running. Slow and heavy and inevitable. And while they handled the paperwork side, I had one more move to make. Because I just received a very interesting DM from a restaurant blogger I'd casually tipped off. She'd gone in for dinner last night, ordered the French kiss dessert, and got charged $34. When she asked what was in it, the waitress froze. There is no dessert, the blogger wrote. They're charging for empty line items. I replied, want to compare receipts? She sent hers. I sent mine. And just like that, the fuse was lit on the public side of this story, too. The fallout didn't come all at once. It started, fittingly, with a lunch special. A local foodie account I follow posted a photo. Seafood tower at Nordale Bistro. But is it worth $140? In the comments, someone replied, ask for an itemized receipt. They tried to charge me for a bottle of wine I never ordered. Another chimed in, same. Got billed for a French kiss, never got dessert. Then a third. That's weird. I saw the same waitress making charges on a tablet without even coming to our table. The floodgates opened. Within 24 hours, the Yelp page was on fire. One-star reviews poured in. Customers shared eerily similar stories. Padded checks, fake items, being pressured to pay with threats of police involvement. The algorithm flagged the business for suspicious activity. Then came the state. Tuesday afternoon, 2:15 p.m., during the slow shift. 2 auditors in plain clothes walked in with clipboards. Said they were from the Department of Revenue, there for an informal review. The staff didn't even realize what was happening until they were asked to print vendor invoices from the last 3 quarters. According to a friend who worked in commercial real estate nearby, the panic hit fast. Lisa was the first to crack. She tried to sneak out through the back while the auditors were still reviewing receipts. But someone had already called the regional manager, who showed up mid-shift and asked her, loudly, did you authorize any of this? Word spread fast. By that evening, Lisa was suspended pending investigation. Mark, the floor manager, was placed on temporary leave. In reality, they were both cooked. That same night, a short segment aired on local news. Popular downtown bistro under investigation for overbilling and suspected vendor fraud. They didn't name names. But I recognized the exterior shot. I recognized the logo blurred behind the reporter. And I damn sure recognized the silence from their PR team. No denial. No comment. No spin. Just nothing. The restaurant's Instagram went dark. Comments disabled. Last post. A photo of Lisa smiling behind the bar with the caption, your favorite server's back this weekend. Poetic. A week later, the temporarily closed for maintenance sign appeared on the door. The inside was stripped. No tables, no bar display, no pendant lights. Cleaned out like they'd been hit by a storm. But the funniest part? A former employee posted anonymously on Reddit claiming staff had known the wine vendor was fake. That Lisa used to brag she wasn't getting rich off tips, but off taste. Apparently, she and Mark were quietly drawing consulting fees for menu development, even though neither of them had culinary training. Turns out those payments were routed through L&M Concepts, which the auditors had just frozen. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to, because the system, slow as it is, was grinding forward. And all I had to do was sit back and watch the people who tried to rip off a stranger get torn apart by the thing they never saw coming. A paper trail. Signed, sealed, and absolutely deadly. 3 weeks after the audit began, the real bomb dropped. I got a call, not from Karen at the Department of Revenue, not from any auditor or regulator, but from a man named Ronald Kessler, who introduced himself as an attorney representing one of Nordale Bistro's silent partners. Mr. Tate, he said, voice clipped, professional. I believe you're the individual who initiated the review that's now public record. I paused. I submitted a complaint, yes. He sighed. Off the record, thank you. On the record, we'd like to talk. Turns out, the restaurant wasn't just a flashy front for overcharging tourists. It was part of a small portfolio held by a boutique investment group. Think dentists, local lawyers, old college buddies who thought owning a trendy bistro would be fun and profitable. Except they weren't managing it. They let Lisa and Mark run day-to-day operations. And Lisa and Mark? They took advantage of that. According to Ronald, the audits uncovered nearly $230,000 in consulting fees paid out to two entities, L&M Concepts and Aurora Reserve Imports. Both traced directly to Lisa and Mark through a series of shell LLCs. The payments were marked as vendor costs and tax write-offs, which meant the investors had unknowingly signed off on false deductions. Now the IRS was circling, which meant the investors were exposed to federal tax fraud liability. They were livid. They ran this like a casino, Ronald said, and made it look legit enough that no one questioned it until now. Civil suits were filed within days. One from the investor group against Lisa and Mark for breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, and embezzlement. One from a supplier who discovered his name had been used on fake invoices. And two more from former customers, including the food blogger I'd spoken with, who retained counsel and filed class action notices for deceptive business practices. Lisa? Gone. Her social media was wiped. LinkedIn deactivated. Last known activity was a tagged photo at a pool party in Scottsdale, Arizona. Mark? Not so lucky. He was served papers at his apartment and later confronted by a news crew as he walked into a vape shop. The clip made it to local TV. The headline: Restaurant manager at center of fraud scandal breaks silence. I was just doing my job. Nice try. But the lawsuits weren't going away. Meanwhile, the Department of Revenue officially froze all accounts tied to the Nordale LLC pending investigation. The state-level charges were still being sorted. Wire fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy were all on the table. And through it all, I stayed quiet. Except for one small thing. I sent a thank you message to Ronald. No need to name me publicly. I wrote, but if any of your clients need a forensic accountant, I know a guy. He replied within an hour. Actually, one of our partners already asked for your contact info. She has 3 restaurants of her own. Wants someone who sees through bullsh*t. I grinned. They tried to hustle me for $600. And in the end, their scam made me 5 times that in new clients. It was a month later when I walked past the building again. Same sidewalk, same storefront, but the vibe? Totally different. The glass door, once polished and pretentious, now had newspaper taped over it. The Nordale Bistro lettering was scraped off, leaving a ghostly outline where the ego used to be. A construction permit was pinned to the inside, flapping slightly in the breeze. The name of the new business, River and Rye Cafe. I smirked. Someone was trying to turn the place into something honest, or at least make people forget what came before. I crossed the street for a better look. That's when I saw it, taped to the inside of the window, just above eye level. A receipt, printed, framed in Scotch tape. The total, $612.88. Handwritten over it, in bold Sharpie. We're not them. Below it, under new ownership. No surprises, no scams, just food. I actually laughed out loud. It was perfect. Poetic. A little dramatic, sure, but after everything, I couldn't blame them. That receipt had become a symbol, a scar, a promise. And yeah, I knew it was mine. I'd recognize that exact charge anywhere. As I stood there, someone stepped out of the cafe, a woman in her 30s, apron dusted with flour, clipboard in hand. You good? She asked, polite but cautious. I smiled. Yeah, just admiring your statement piece. She glanced at the receipt and laughed. That? Long story. Place used to be a scam factory. Tried to rip off the wrong guy. Oh yeah. She nodded. Apparently, he blew the whole place up. Audit, lawsuits, the works. I raised an eyebrow. You know who he was? Some accountant, I think. No one knows his name. Legend, though. I chuckled. Yeah, sounds like a good guy. She smiled, then held the door open. You want a coffee? On the house. It's just regular. No gold labels, no fake desserts. I hesitated, just for a second, then stepped inside. Because why not? There's something deeply satisfying about seeing the crime scene cleaned up. Not just punished, corrected. That space had been poisoned with arrogance and fraud. Now it smelled like cinnamon and fresh scones. I sat by the window, sipped the coffee, and watched as 2 tourists walked by, pointed at the sign, and nodded approvingly. That $600 bill. Best investment I ever made. Final. The scam cost me $600. But what they didn't realize was, I don't just count dollars. I count patterns, footprints, mistakes. They tried to intimidate me, to gaslight me into silence. Instead, I turned their own arrogance into evidence. Lisa and Mark? Last I heard, she was dodging subpoenas, and he was working part-time at a strip mall car rental place. The investors got their money back, with interest, thanks to civil court. And me? I landed 2 new clients off the whole mess. One of them still jokes, remind me never to shortchange you on an invoice. Funny thing is, I never raised my voice. I never made a scene. I just read the bill, and made sure the right people paid for it. So next time someone says, you look rich, you can afford it? Just smile. Because sometimes, looking rich is the last mistake they make.